Don't even think of calling me when I'm at a intense account.
Hi, everybody. We are on air, and we are on the finishing stretch here. And what we talked about yesterday was that there are these two modalities of the creative flow, and those two modalities are concealment and revelation. To use one word. Or we could use other terms, contraction. That's the common Kabbalistic term, tzimtzum, versus expansion, hitpashtut in Hebrew. Or these are all synonyms. All right, to use another term, nikuda, dot, versus kav, the line. Okay. Or to use another term, klal, which means general, and prat means specific. Those are all synonyms for the purposes of our discussion today. And they also happen to correspond, those two modalities of expansion, to the first two letters of the four-letter name of God, the Yud and the Hey, Hashem's four-letter name, the so-called tetragrammaton. So Yud and Hey, the Yud is the dot, the Hey is the expansion. Okay, Yud is the concealment, the Hey is the revelation. The Yud is the dot, the Hey is the line. The Yud is the klal, the generality, and the Hey is the prat, the details. Okay. Now, in terms of why they're important, so they're important because, as we said before, in order to be able to impart, to give over, there has to be a concealment, right? If David Larson told us everything he knew about script writing and about the creative process to someone who wanted to learn that skill, so it would be overwhelming to the recipient. So what he has to do as a communicator, as a creator, right? He has to first engage in an act of concealment, and then out of that concealment comes just one thin ray of light, which is appropriate to the recipient. Okay, so that's the creative modality. Now, those things seem like polar opposites, general and specific, right? Dot versus line, etc. But and we mentioned yesterday, by the way, that there are people like this. They're kind of like dot people and line people, right? Or left brain and right brain, to use sort of another term. Sort of the people who see kind of like the artistic whole, and people who are very detailed people. You could the poets versus the physicist or something like that. A lot of sometimes there are people who combine these. Like Albert Einstein was apparently a pretty accomplished violin player. But also obviously someone who could think very much in terms of the mathematical analysis of the universe, which is very much of a detailed kind of thing. So, we have people who combine those both. Of course, the both, that's their whole point, is how to combine them both, how to see the world instead of seeing it as adversarial opposites, but to be able to see these things as united. And that unity, how do we create that unity? So that unity comes from in Kabbalistic terms, or Ein Sof, the light of the infinite one, or Ein Sof. Well, how do we do that? Where do we drag down this force, this uniting force, which is the creative process, but which is very primal, comes even before the creative process, right? It's a light which takes the specific modalities of the creative process and unifies them all. Well, that light, as we pointed out yesterday, is or Ein Sof, but let's just get practical for a second. Bring it down. Let's make it real. So that's what we're going to learn right now. So chapter 30. V'hinei hamshachat or ha'atzmi de'ein sof lasot yichud v'tkalut d'shtei otiyot yud hey hu al yedei Torah. This is the secret. This is the takeaway. Takeaway in the first sentence. And that is drawing down of this essential light of the infinite God in order to create unity and integration between the two letters of Hashem's name, the Yud and the Hey, the dot and the line, the concealment and the revelation, right? The generality and the specificity. It's through Torah. It's through the Torah. Ukeshe amru razal alpi o yachazik b'ma'ozi yaseh shalom li shalom yaseh. Okay, so the author here quotes a saying of our sages that's based upon a specific verse in the prophet Yeshayahu. And the verse in Yeshayahu reads, "If he holds on to my strength, he will bring me peace. he will cause me peace. So that's what we're trying to do, is create shalom. Because what is shalom? Peace means the integration of what seem to be adversarial forces. So we have these two different types of forces, concealment versus revelation, right? Specificity versus generality, etc. How do we create shalom between these adversarial forces? That's what the pasuk is talking about. If he holds on to my strength, he will bring me peace. Well, hold on to my strength. Well, what's that? So our sages, our great sages explain that kol ha'osek b'Torah. It means my strength is an allusion to the Torah. God says all who involve themselves in Torah may seem shalom. They're the ones who then can bring shalom. B'pamalia shamala v'shalom b'pamalia. Whoa, get those words out early in the morning. Yeah, in the pamalia shamata. So these are beautiful words. Pamalia in Hebrew and pamalia, it might sound like an English word, the word family. The Hebrew word pamalia, which is actually, a loan word in Hebrew. It's not a biblical word. Yeah, all sounds great to me. So it's the same word as family. So this passage from the sages reaches anybody who is involved in Torah brings peace in the heavenly family and in the earthly family, meaning that's usually sort of a reference to kind of spheres of existence. Like a family is a unit of entities, right? Diverse entities. And so the heavenly sphere, we could say the heavenly sphere and the earthly sphere, all is united through Torah. Torah is how we bring peace. Okay. So now he goes into more detail. Shalom b'pamalia shalmala, this idea of peace in the heavenly sphere. So hu b'vchinat otiot yud hey, that's bringing peace between the yud and the hey of Hashem's name, right? The dot and the line, or generality and specificity. And what does it mean when our sages said, and in the earthly sphere, pamalia shamata? So who otiot vav hey? You see, we haven't talked about the last two letters of Hashem's name so far, because there's four letters, yud and the hey and the vav. So right now we're not going to go into detail what the last letters of Hashem's name represent in terms of the creative process. But in any case, all of those things represent different forces, and even forces that could be viewed as antithetical and even adversarial. But when we involved in Torah, it brings shalom, integration between all those different forces. We're just going to skip the parentheses here. Sharei HaTorah oseh shalom v'itchabrut b'otiyot yud hey v'vav hey. That the Torah brings peace and integration between the yud and the hey and the vav in the hey. V'anyanhu dihinei HaTorah nikreit emet. How does this work? The Torah is called truth. Truth. Where do we see the Torah called truth? You see many, many verses in Tanakh and verses in Scripture which allude to Torah as being peace. And we see this for instance, in the prophet Malachi, where it says there, Torat emet hayta b'fihu. The Torah of truth was in his mouth. So you see Torat emet. Matter of fact, that phrase, Torat emet, has become kind of a phrase that my kids, when we lived in LA, they went to a school called Torat emet, though it was called actually Torah Emes. Yeah. But nobody ever called it Torat emet, unless you're a Sephardi. But Torah Emes, an Ashkenazi pronunciation, because those two phrases, right? Torat emet, the Torah of truth. And of course, if you think about it for a second, it's almost a the term is escaping me right now, but it's almost redundant, because Torah is divine wisdom and will. Of course, that's truth. It's the very definition of truth. Torah emet. As a matter of fact, our sages say, Chot Moshe HaKadosh Baruch Hu emet. Every sovereign has a royal seal. So what is God's seal? Our sages say, emet, truth. By definition, truth. Not subjective truth, not politically correct truth, not which way the wind's blowing, truth. Whatever New York Times thinks is cool, truth, right? But real truth. Real truth. Okay. And then he quotes another pasuk here, and this pasuk is from Mishlei, from Proverbs. So emet knei v'altim kor. It says in Proverbs. Proverbs is, they call it wisdom literature. Good advice on how to navigate complexity of life with the light of Torah. So it says there, emet knei, purchase, acquire truth. V'altim kor, don't sell out. Altim kor, don't sell it. Right? The kai ala Torah is referring to Torah. How do we acquire truth? Through Torah. Now, in now let's go we're gonna get Kabbalistic. Is that okay? Okay. So in Kabbalah, the third sphira is divine emanation is associated with emet. So you have chesed, that's the attribute of the loving kindness, giving over. You have gvura, that's constraint, right? And then you have tiferet, that's what this is, which you could define. Hard to translate the thing, splendor, however you want to translate it, and that's called also emet, truth. Because what is truth? Truth is the synthesis, and we've used this term in the past. We're going to have thesis, antithesis, synthesis, to use a Hegelian term. I think he was a baseball player for the New York Yankees. Hegel. I don't know what I'm talking about, so you just forgive me. So it just sounds impressive. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, as Hegel said. Do not be impressed. I know not of what I speak. Yeah, right. So chesed, gvura, tiferet. So you have chesed and gvura, and then the synthesis of tiferet, which is emet, the harmonious blending of the essential truth behind what seem to be polar opposites. You have the attribute of chesed, and you have what it seems to be its polar opposite, gvura, or the point of the line, all the different terms we used before. They seem oppositional. But when you look at emet, truth, has no oppositional force. Right? There's no thesis, antithesis. Right? Because when something is the pure truth, you don't see, when I say it has no oppositional force, there is in the sense of a lie. Yeah. But that's not what I mean when I say oppositional force. I mean forces which are oppositional, but both are based in reality and truth, right? Someone who's a dot person and someone who's a line person, or someone who's a poet versus someone who's a physicist, or someone who's a concealment versus someone who's an expansion, or, whatever terms we want to use, the kinds of things we're talking about now. They're both rooted in truth, and there are people like this. They're left brain people, right brain people. We need them all, right? So, but they're antithetical in the sense of they're very different approaches. Like a left brain person, right brain person might not get along very well. So, in that sense, they're oppositional forces. Emet, truth, there is. In the conceptual sphere, there's no oppositional force to truth. It just stands by itself. And in Kabbalah, you often see they'll put them as like a triangle. So chesed, gvura, tiferet, right? Because we're up there, the upper 2 points of the triangle, because they're oppositional, but when they blend together at the bottom, it's an upside down triangle. That. So inverted pyramid, right? So tiferet, truth, right? It has no oppositional force because it's the harmonious blending. It's the essential truth. And blending is not the right word. See, blending implies I take the two elements and I put them in a blender and comes out a good smoothie. Have them twice a day for breakfast and dinner. Okay, like Larry over there, he never eats real manly food like steak. He just has that, right? He only eats the manna. So that's why he looks so good. But emet's not like that. Emet's not like the blending. You take two things, you put it in a blender. That's not what truth is. Truth is actually the light which precedes differentiation. It's the light which comes before the different creative modalities of the dot versus the line. That's why it creates the blend, because it's not really the blend. It's the primal truth which comes before it. Okay, it's or Ein Sof. It's the light of the infinite. That's what we're trying to achieve. Remember, we said if we could draw down the light of the infinite, we could actually create a unity between things that seem opposite. And of course, that's part of our problem getting along with people. This is what this is all about. It's just very Kabbalistic in abstract terms, because people rub us wrong. They rub us wrong for all kinds of different reasons. And one of them is they seem so not like me, right? So, and the reason they seem not like me is because they may be right brain people instead of left brain people, or they may be line people instead of dot people, or whatever kind of images you want to use. So how do we somehow see beyond differences? It's by the truth, which transcends, which goes more primal. Right? The truth is that which, in fact, bears all differentiation and all subsequent steps in the creative process. That's why truth is timeless. That's why truth is eternal. As we find in the pasuk, that the lips of truth are established forever. That's why we have to be so express fidelity and faithfulness to Torah. And there's no such thing as Torah. Once you say things have changed, something was immoral yesterday, but is moral today. If people ever think that, you know that that is falsehood. Because Sfat Emet Tikon La'ad, the lips of truth are established forever. Truth is not changing. Truth is eternal. Ukvotiot shel Emet, Aleph Mem Tav, Rosh Tav, Sof Shemit Kaim, Rosh Kamo B'Sof. And he quotes these different. I'm just in a hurry to finish the chapter, and he quotes even the phrase that we just quoted before, that God's signature is truth. Torah dichtiv, chatum Torah belimudai, shezeu Torah shebal peh, shusof davar v'halacha lamasa b'gilui ritzon elyon, shematim lepnimiyut hakavana the Torah shebichtav kol shekadum makom acher. Lachein olam yitkaim ela bemet. That's why the world stands on truth. Kamar Mishnah Gimel Dvarim Olam Kayam Aladin V'Alamet V'Hainu Emet Torah Shal Dezeh Dafka Mikayim Olam Lefisha Oseh Shalom V'Karub Deribuyo V'Chim Zeu Karov Havaya L'Shem Korav. That's why it says Hashem is close to all those who call upon Him. L'Chol Asher Yikru Emet, to all those who call upon Him in truth. If we call upon it from Psalms, if we call upon God in truth through Torah, then in fact, then we have the ability to bring the ultimate intimacy into the world, the truth of Torah, which then will eradicate all things which seem to be polar opposite. Now let's just read the summary here. That the light which we draw down, the essential light, in order to create the unity between the Yud of Gazem and the He of Yud through the Torah, which is the truth which bears all opposites and unites them together. What a nice image. And you know what we just did for the past half hour? We learned Torah. We brought truth into the world, brought truth into our soul, brought truth into our personalities. And that's going to help us live in the next 24 hours an experience of truth in which we're able to see beyond differences and see the underlying unity of all existence. And I wish you an incredible day. Go out and make a living.
Amen.